Don't take my word for it. Look that mess up, please.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? KCE, King Chaka.
An educated and united public cannot be controlled. Get organized.
Learn to be active.
Looks like we got us another hit.
You tell her to get away from me. She's crazy.
Choose your destiny.
An educated and united public cannot be controlled. Get organized.
Learn to be active. Investigate both sides of the argument. Come up with your own conclusions.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? KCE, King Chaka.
Hey, how y'all doing out there? How y'all feel? Remember, an educated public cannot be controlled. Learn to be active. The views and events expressed here are totally whacked and are not necessarily the views of anyone. ¿Cómo estás? Bien, bien, bien. ¿Podemos ayudarnos más? Sí se puede. And don't take my word for it. Look that mess up. Please. Please. How y'all feeling, man? Another installation here. We might be doing shows more on the schedule now because school is out for me. Last final this past Wednesday. I don't know what's going to be happening this summer. I may end up busy after a few weeks, or not. We'll see. But for now, we're here. I'm going to try to do a show tonight and tomorrow night, like the usual schedule. I might come on early tomorrow. Excuse me. So the name of the show today is Media Literacy, which is very important in today's age. And I think a lot of people don't really understand the term. It's a new term. I went to Webster's dictionary, and they didn't really have a definition in there. So that tells me how new the term is. But for lack of a better source, let's look at Wikipedia's definition. Wiki. Okay, let's look at this. It says media literacy is an expanded conceptualization of literacy that includes the ability to access and analyze media messages as well as create, reflect, and take action, using the power of information and communication to make a difference in the world. Media literacy is not restricted to one medium and is understood as a set of competencies that are essential for work life and citizenship. Yeah. It is important. Let's read some more. Media literacy education is the process used to advance media literacy competencies and is intended to promote awareness of media influence and create an active stance towards both consuming and creating media. Media literacy education is part of the curriculum in the United States and some European Union countries, and an interdisciplinary global community of media scholars and educators engages in knowledge and scholarly and professional journals and national membership associations. So yeah, I took a class this past semester and we talked about media literacy. And when we did, it kind of opened my eyes. I understood what media literacy was, but I didn't understand how much it impacts things and how much most people don't have it. That is the part that really opened my eyes, you know, because I've been doing this show for a while, and you know, some of the stuff we talk about or whatever, we're always talking about the news and stuff and kind of like interpreting things. And then, you know, the comments that people make, they show that these people lack media literacy. Like they don't get that someone's coming from a biased position or whatever. You know, they don't get that, you know, people are sharing opinions and not facts. You know, they don't get that statistics can be skewed based on the sample size. Like I could keep going down the list of things that people don't really understand that leads to bad media literacy. Like people can know how to read and understand what they read. It's just a lot of people don't understand that with all of the technology that we have and all of the different media mediums that are out there, and you have this barrage of information that comes at you constantly, that being able to navigate that landscape is really important. And, you know, we can see the effects of bad literacy in our politics, you know, in our culture wars, if you will, like how people react. Like it's so easy. People are so easily manipulated, basically, is what we're getting to here because of their lack of media literacy. So if the people were more media literate, like what I mean is more people were. If the majority of people, I would say, aren't. And a big reason why is because technology, things have changed so quickly over the years. You know, a lot of people just haven't caught up. They haven't caught up to what's been happening, you know, as far as the technology and the way we consume media and how huge the impact is on people's lives as far as their perspectives on things. So you can't blame them necessarily. I mean, I would say ignorance is a choice, but if they don't even know what they should be learning, then that's tough. Like I say, Webster's dictionary didn't even have a definition for this because it's a new thing. So, you know, I used to listen to talk radio all the time, you know, used to be in traffic a lot. And it was kind of before I really was on YouTube, like listening to, I would listen to YouTube, but I don't know. When you're in traffic, you don't have time to necessarily navigate. Nowadays, I do, because I kind of just got like I built up my YouTube channel, so it kind of pops up the stuff that I watch generally without me having to do much searching. But the talk radio, it just kind of goes, and you don't have to like search. So I used to listen to talk radio a lot. Excuse me. And I would say talk radio is overwhelmingly dominated by conservative voices. All of the big voices, and now it's been some years since I listened, but I'm willing to bet that it's the same now. The overwhelming majority of the personalities on talk radio, the popular channels, are overwhelmingly conservative voices. And you know, I learned a lot from these guys. Even like hip hop music is really strange dynamic that happens when you have like a ultra conservative guy who is overwhelmingly feels like reverse racism is a thing. But that same guy puts me on to like some hip hop music or like R&B music or whatever, you know. I always say music doesn't have a color or whatever. Music is universal. I really do believe that. But at the same time, it was surprising to me that I could have this conservative voice that would put me on to some stuff that I wasn't aware of, that I would enjoy and, you know, really into. Like, it was an artist that one of the conservative radio artists personalities mentioned on the show, and I want to say he played a clip of one of the songs, and I was like, man, that's pretty good. And ever since, I've been a fan of that particular artist. And it's not the same. It's not what you would think, basically. You know, it doesn't go with the predetermined view of like what you would think this particular person would be into. And to this day, that moment kind of resonates with me a lot. So, you know, one of the basic things that I try to do with this show is reach out to both sides, you know, get a dialogue happening, you know, because like some type of diplomacy between the two camps, you know, the two main perspectives, the alternate perspectives. And that's part of the reason. I mean, I don't know that I was already going down, like I always say that I was made to do this. I think I was going down this road a long time ago. Because back then when I was listening to talk radio, like I say, I was overwhelmingly listening to conservative voices. And I agree with a lot of stuff that these people say. Once they get to a certain perspective, like I know where they're coming from in a lot of things, and where they're coming from is like a dark place, like an anger that I don't agree with and I don't subscribe with. You know, I sympathize with the anger because I have anger too, but it's the source of it is totally different from the anger, the source of the anger from these people. Like, we have total different perspectives when it comes to what to be angry about. But when it comes to like understanding like the world and why things happen or whatever, like a lot of times I do agree with these people, and a lot of them are really smart or whatever, but they still hold these views that are like what's the word I'm looking for? I want to say anti-educational, like, and it's hard to say that because I know that these people are really smart. So, but it's not related to how much knowledge they have gained over their years. It's related to their predetermined views that they've been given since they were a child, that they haven't been able to reconcile. They haven't been able to grow out of, you know? You know, I talk about Black people in the United States and people being in a state of arrested development, but it's true. It's true for the other demographics also here in the United States, that they have gotten to this place of arrested development where the growth is not really happening, even though they learn more stuff. The stuff that they learn, they find a way to fit it into their already predetermined perspectives, basically, is what I'm trying to say. So I go down this long road to come back to media literacy and how you consume talk radio, you consume MSNBC, Fox, even the regular like sitcoms, TV shows, or whatever. They all have messages or whatever. A lot of times you are taking those in subconsciously, and they drive your perspective on the world. They drive your politics or whatever. So understanding that you have to be able to determine when something is an opinion, when something is slanted, when something is trying to get a rise out of you, like the whole point of it. I was watching something and they were talking about how the news, mostly how they say if it bleeds, it leads. Most of the news is just that. It's the kind of stuff that it gets you all emotionally activated, like some horror story of something that happened to someone. And, you can relate because you have family members, you have a mom, a dad, a sister, a brother, a child, or whatever, and something happens to someone, and then the other person in the story is heard about it or whatever. And you can get into that story and, it gets clicks. But this doesn't lead you down the road of understanding politics better. It doesn't lead you down the road of understanding how power works. Okay. How the state of things related to monopolies and major conglomerates and so forth and so on. It's the same thing with when we focus on politics and we give like the corporations a pass, and we don't see the connection between big business and politics, special interests. That is related to the lack of media literacy. Those same stories that you read were influenced by big business, maybe in some cases written by them, all the way to the point where the legislation that gets passed, it was also influenced and in some cases written by big business. There's a clip in here that I want to post. Let's see. It says media literacy is an expanded conceptualization of literacy that includes the ability to access and analyze media messages, as well as create, reflect, and take action, using the power of information and communication to make a difference in the world. So I want to copy this. Reflect, take action. How can you reflect? And you can take action, but your actions will be misguided because you didn't comprehend the information properly. It takes you to a place where they are manipulating you in a certain way. So as long as it's kind of like a magician, right? The reason why magic works is because they have a distraction. They do something over here and it draws your attention over there. Meanwhile, they're doing something over here to the left that you miss. And then that thing that's to the left that you missed, they whip it out. And you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. How did they do that? Pull an elephant out of nowhere. They can pull an elephant out of nowhere when they can effectively draw your attention somewhere else. You're not consuming the information thoroughly. Does that make sense? Anyways, I just feel like it's important. Let's play a little clip. Wait, let's read a little bit more of this before I go there. It says media literacy education. We're still on Wikipedia. It says education for media literacy often encourages people to ask questions about what they watch, hear, and read. Some examples of media examined include, but are not limited to, television, video games, photographs, and audio messages. And, you know, it's important to understand that media is not just radio. You know, it's not just television. It's like almost everything as far as when it's messages coming. So it says media literacy education provides tools to help people develop receptive media capability to critically analyze messages, offers opportunities for learners to broaden their experience of media, and help them develop generative media capability to increase creative skills in making their own media messages. Critical analysis can include identifying author, purpose, and point of view, examining construction techniques and genres, examining patterns of media representation, and detecting propaganda, censorship, and bias in news and public affairs programming, and the reasons for these. Media literacy education may explore how structural features such as media ownership or its funding model affects the information presented. Boom. So, like, you know, if I'm I don't know, let's say I'm Boeing and I'm paying for this, I'm the premier funder of this media that you're consuming. Within that media, you're not going to hear any bad things about Boeing, no matter how many bad things happen. Dude, I'm not going to pay for that. Why would I pay for that? Why would I pay for you to learn information, bad information about me? I'm not going to do that. I mean, why? You can't blame someone for that, you know, at all, you know. And more you having people, you know, you got Elon Musk with Twitter. You have Bezos with the Washington Post. These people can control what information comes out. And, you know, everything gets looked over by our intelligence agencies also. So certain stuff that says bad things about the United States will never see the light of day because our intelligence agencies are going to come in and be like, no, you can't publish that. You know, that. And on the flip side of this, it's like we have all of these individuals who are quote unquote journalists, and they're making like TikTok videos or whatever. And a lot of these people aren't very media literate either. So they go, that's how you end up going down these rabbit holes that lead to nowhere, because it's sensational, it catches your eye, you know, it's plausible or whatever, but it's not real. It's not, you know, there's no factual basis for it, you know, and it's all about clicks. So the person who is making the TikTok video, if they've been doing it long enough, they know what gets people going and what will get it more likely to go viral, because that's the whole thing that they're trying to do, you know, get it shared and get a lot of people looking at it or whatever. So, you know, emotional stuff, conspiracy theory type stuff tends to goes viral. So we're inundated with these information coming from the major news networks. And then we got the small people who don't know stuff, and we're inundated with that stuff also. And it's like, we're trying to navigate through all of this. And if we don't know how to look at stuff and see that it's propaganda or bias or whatever, then, you know, we get lost in that information, and it gets us activated to a certain conclusion. Let's read a little bit more. It says goals might include developing the habits and skills to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act using all forms of communication. Education about media literacy can begin in early childhood by developing pedagogy around more critical thinking and deeper analysis and questioning of concepts and texts. A student age and enter adulthood, the use of learning media literacy will be impactful in identifying ethical and technical standards in media, as well as understanding how media ties their cognitive, social, and emotional needs. So, a lot of the stuff is written at I think they said 7th grade level, something like that. Even the complex stuff coming from, I don't know, CNN, MSNBC, or whatever. It's still written at that 7th grade language. They want to reach everyone. They don't use big words or whatever. Okay, let me be able to catch my breath for a second, and I'm gonna play a little bit of this on this topic.
Hey there, everybody. I'm Jay Smooth,
Hold on. Am I sharing? Okay, yeah.
and this is Crash Course Media Literacy. For the next few weeks, we're going to take a deep dive into media, how we consume it, how we create it, and how it impacts our everyday lives. Before we get started, do me a favor and think, how many hours did you spend consuming media today? Don't worry, I'll wait. What'd you come up with? 2 hours? 3? 5? If you're the average US adult, today you spent upwards of 10 hours watching TV, listening to the radio, surfing the web, scrolling through your phone, or checking out awesome educational video series on YouTube. That's over 40% of your day. If you're a teen or tween, you spent a little less time, maybe 6 to 9 hours. Never before in history have humans spent so many waking hours consuming media. Since it's taking up more and more of our time each year, it's important that we understand its influence on everything we do.
Try to skip the intro.
Different things. The literal definition of media is the plural of medium or multiple mediums, so to speak. And a medium is a substance or method in which something is communicated. It's the vehicle for a message. Books, films, paintings, songs, TV shows, poems, video games, magazines, podcasts, music videos, newspapers, web forums, coupons, email newsletters, tweets, straight-to-DVD sequels, receipts, traffic signs, both good and bad street art, Snapchat stories, those word of the day calendars your aunt always buys you, protest signs, embarrassing but cute childhood photos you post on Throwback Thursday, breaking news push notifications that give you a mini heart attack, sex ed pamphlets about your changing body, and my Blu-ray copy of the second highest grossing film of all time, Titanic. Those are all media. When you think about it that way, it makes sense that we spend so much time consuming media. Whether you're at work or school or just hanging out, chances are you're almost always interacting with some sort of artifact of communication. As a culture, we often stick a "the" in front of media to refer collectively to mass communication. It's an umbrella term we use to talk about the widely distributed newspapers, TV channels, websites, radio stations, movie studios, and more that create or distribute information, like CNN, the New York Times, NPR, Disney, or YouTube. Whether you're talking about media as in multiple mediums or the media, and during this course we'll be talking about both, the ability to navigate the media is a powerful and crucial skill. Media scholars refer to this skill as media literacy. As a field of study, media literacy comprises and overlaps many different theories and subjects, from critical thinking and psychology to linguistics and ethics and technology. In this series, we'll be using the definition of media literacy that's used by the National Association of Media Literacy Educators. And it describes media literacy as the ability to access, analyze, evaluate, create, and act using all forms of communication. Now,
Wow, that definition was pretty close to the that second definition was pretty close to the Wikipedia definition, which is kind of surprising to me. Critical thinking, I think, is where is the part to focus on. Being able to critically think about the media that you're consuming, like what is it saying to you? What are the messages? I think a big part of why people like the movies, right? People say the movies suck, and I would agree with them like I love movies. Okay, like that's what I like to do. You know, is consume a really good movie. You know, like that's a very pleasurable experience to me. But it happens less and less, few and far between nowadays, that they actually make art that has a message that resonates with me, because you know, I don't like to use the term woke, you know, and that's what people say, you know, like it's all woke or whatever. But I think in that instance, when they're talking about movies, they're saying that they're presenting a message that they don't agree with in the movie. You know, they're trying to put political ideas in your head or whatever, you know. And, you know, I sympathize with them on that, you know, like we're smart enough, people are smart enough to be able to, you know, come to their own conclusions about things. And that's where like the movies that are better are the ones that aren't like shoveling it down your throat as far as what is right and what is wrong. Instead, they're presenting you with things that happen and allowing you to come to your own conclusions about what is right and what's wrong or whatever, you know. So when you have the movie and it's clearly stating to you what is right and what is wrong, it can be a bit of a turnoff, especially if you don't agree with it. So, you know, and when you create art, you're creating something that resonates with people, you know, at their core, you know, deep inside of them, you know. It could be jarring, you know, or it could be a jubilee, you know, it could be a euphoric, you know. Either way, it strikes to you deep into your spirit or deep into your soul, and you are, you know, it leaves you, you know, like changed, if you will. And it was like that with the art back in the days, like the paintings, you know. People would stand around looking at the paintings for hours and just kind of like picking it apart and saying what they see and what it means to them and so forth and so on. And that's when it's great art, when it can be interpreted in different ways and leaves people like changed afterwards, you know. So that's the thing. But, you know, I think that the real reason why the movies suck so bad is because, you know, it's again the same problem in all sectors is that we have monopolies. Okay, these multinational conglomerates that dominate every sector, and the movies are the same. You know, you only have a few big companies that give you all of the stuff. So, and they have the same deals where they're worried about their profit model, you know. They're afraid to take risks, you know. That's why we got all these superhero movies and stuff like that, nostalgia movies where they do like Mario or whatever. Like they know you were a kid and you played Mario and you've grown up now and you have a nostalgia for it. So they know that there's a market. Like they do the data and the research and they come up with, okay, boom, it's a huge amount of people who still are into Mario. So let's make a real life Mario movie. You know, we know those people are going to come out and check the movie out. So, but if you have a movie that, you know, it has like a new concept, it has a new view on things, it has it's experimental, they're less likely to put money into that because it may flop, and they, you know, from their point of view, they can't afford to have those flops. They need every, you know, movie that they make to turn a profit, because that's what they're in the business of doing, is making profit, you know, making sure that their shareholders you know, get dividends or whatever. So, you know, every sector is the same, every business is the same when it comes to that. So the products and services that we get have been watered down and diluted, and that is the reason, because profit is the major driver of everything. So what we want to produce it as cheaply as possible and make the most profit out of it, you know. So the result is going to always be that the quality of it is going to suffer, because it's, more profit to give people, a shitty product. It's just more profitable to give you a shitty product. So if you had actual real competition, then that would drive them to be more innovative. If you have a little guy who's just making really good stuff, and maybe it costs a little bit more to make, and maybe the profit margin isn't as great, but it's enough for them to keep on going and doing what they're doing, and the people love it. And then you have this brand loyalty, and so then the people can choose to have this quality product or this shitty product. And in a lot of cases, people are going to choose that quality product. But the way things are now, they squash out any real competition, or they buy it out and make it a part of their whole thing. And, boom, there goes the quality in it. A little bit more of this.
Now, with this definition in mind, think back to the media you spent your time with today. What kind of content were you absorbing, and how did you get to it? Were you making sense of its messages? Were you aware that each message was created by someone with their own goals and opinions? When you create media, like a blog post or an Instagram, what is your responsibility to those who view it? Finally, what do you do with all that info you just received? With media literacy skills, you'll have the power to think through each of these important questions every time you pick up your phone or flip on the radio. It'll be like putting on a pair of glasses for the first time. So eye-opening, you'll never want to take them off, which is great because you won't actually be able to take them off. It'll be hard to look at media the same way. So actually, I guess media literacy is more like laser eye surgery.
I don't know if he meant it or not, but it was the that movie. What was the name of it? Goodness gracious, what's the name of it? They See. What was the name of that movie with the guy with the sunglasses on? And he was like, him and the black guy was fighting. He forced him to put the glasses on, and he could see things, he could see through the messages on the billboards and see that you had like these alien people walking around looking like regular folks or whatever. They Live. That's the name of it. They Live. If y'all haven't seen that, go freaking watch that movie. All right. Go watch They Live if you haven't seen it. So I don't know if this guy was, kind of pointing to that when he was talking about the sunglasses or whatever, but that I think that was in the 80s or early 90s, and it's a cult classic. And there's a line that still goes around that from that movie where he said, I came to chew ass and wait, I came to chew bubblegum and kick ass, and I'm all out of bubblegum. People still say that to this day. That's such a iconic ass line from that movie. Anyways, that's it right there. That's media literacy right there. Being able to see through it, like being able to see where the messages are coming from. What is the point of the messages? And it's like consume, right? A lot of it was that when he put on the glasses, he looked at the billboards. It says consume. It says, make babies, stuff like that. And then that's the root of the message that you're getting, They have the popular brand. It has images. I don't know if they was inspired by They Live, but it makes me think about They Live all the time, where it says obey. That's the other thing that it would say when he would put on the glasses and look at the billboard, obey. And, I think that's the name of the brand, Obey. You guys know what I'm talking about? And then it's like skulls, and the images are like skulls and stuff like that, and it's like obey, obey. And it's like the kids, it's popular, they wear it, and I don't know if they really understand how heavy that is. And if you're living in a totalitarian government and people just accept the totalitarianism, obey is what they're going to say. So it's like, you had an altercation with the police officer, and then they're like, did you obey their commands? Is like the first thing they ask you, and it's like, I'm not going to say the police are wrong all the time, but sometimes anybody can be wrong. The judge can be wrong. The doctor can be wrong. Any professional can be wrong, in what they're doing. you know, and in some cases, obeying may not be what you want to do. Like the example of like the SS officers during like the Holocaust or whatever, you know, they're getting orders to go and kill the Jews. And it's like, if they, you know, didn't obey, then maybe they wouldn't be complicit in this, you know, destruction of a peoples or whatever. You know what I'm trying to say? What I'm trying to say is authority, you know, isn't always right, you know, but if you live in a totalitarian state, then the state is going to tell you to obey, and then the people that accept this totalitarian government, they're going to act as the state, like they are taking on that authority by saying you're supposed to do this and you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to obey. You know, I obey, I do what they say, and you're supposed to do it too. So like they see you doing something outside of what you're supposed to do, quote unquote, and they're gonna like put on their badge and be like what is the word I'm looking for? Like you know, they become a representative of a police officer or whatever, and they're gonna police your actions, you know, and that's when it becomes really horrible and scary. It's like when we had the pandemic, and you know, you wasn't supposed to have groups of more than 5 or whatever, and then your neighbor would, you know, call the police or whatever and say, you know, my neighbors, they're having a party. I know it's more than 5. I saw more than 5 people go into their house or whatever. Like, what a terrible situation you're in when you're villainizing your neighbor in that way. And then they give you benefits for ratting out your neighbor or whatever. Anyways, let's play a little bit more. I'm gonna move on.
But way cheaper. Okay, media literacy lesson number 1. Understanding the difference between media messages and media effects. Media messages are the values and ideas that are promoted by the media, the things that get put into them. Media effects are their influences and consequences on audiences. But talking about media in terms of these inputs and outputs is way, way too simple. Media doesn't just broadcast one easy to understand message straight into our brains. And readers and viewers don't just agree with whatever they say and move on with their lives. The creators' experiences and environment affect everything they create. Their messages are filled with tons of baggage, and we consumers have our own baggage too, which determines how we react to and interpret messages. Media scholars, cultural critics, and plenty of other very smart academic types have long understood that we need to think about messages and effects in a far more nuanced way. For instance, take British sociologist Stuart Hall's theory of encoding and decoding, popularized in 1973. Hall wrote that before a message is distributed, it is encoded by the creator during its production. The message the creator wants to send is written in a code of sorts using a host of pre-understood meanings, symbols, and definitions that they think or hope the recipient will understand. But the recipient, that's you, has their own mental dictionary full of meanings, symbols, and definitions. When someone interprets a message, they decode it by applying their knowledge and experience to decipher its meaning. When I say encode and decode, I don't just mean a secret code you use to talk to your friends or Morse code. As Hall would say, all language is coded. Let's go to the thought bubble to break this down. Say you're texting your significant other about where to go for dinner. You just heard about this fancy French restaurant that's supposed to be super romantic and perfect for a date. So you say, let's do Maison de l'Amour, kissy face emoji. You're doing a little encoding here. You use the restaurant's name instead of fancy French restaurant because it sounds more impressive and makes you look cool for knowing a little French. You throw in a kissy face emoji to turn up the flirtatiousness. But also notice you say do instead of go to, because since you're already talking about where to eat, the activity you're doing at Maison de l'Amour is implied. Done. Sent. They respond, okay, crying, laughing emoji. Wait, what does that mean? Did you say something wrong? Do they not want to go? Are they just so stoked for this restaurant that they're laughing maniacally? Do they want to break up? What does this mean? Here, you're trying to decode this mysterious message using what you know about the English language, emoji, and your significant other. Maybe some social anxiety is working its way in too. Either way, you're thinking that clearly your romantic gesture was poorly received. But perhaps all they meant by the crying, laughing emoji was they'd love to go despite your super cheesy taste in restaurants. They encoded their message too, but something got lost in the decoding. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Hall's theory.
So yeah, a lot of like what we consume, our prejudices, our predetermined views determine how we, decode what messages were sent our way. And they know this. So that's the reason why they send messages that have what they call like dog whistles mixed in there. And to a person that doesn't have those predetermined views on certain things, those dog whistles aren't going to work or whatever. But they're not meant for those people. Does that make any sense? The dog whistle is meant for the person that already has those predetermined views about certain things, so like it means nothing to, the rest of us. We just hear it as it is, like take it on its face. But the person that has these predetermined views on that particular topic, the dog whistle has a totally different meaning to them. Does that make any sense? It's like when they say, let's go, Brandon, right? Let's go, Brandon. So, okay, let's go somewhere, Brandon. Let's go play baseball or something. Let's go watch the baseball game or whatever. Let's go, Brandon, But that phrase has a meaning to a certain, group of people or whatever. And like most people aren't going to read into it in any kind of way, but the ones that understand it, that know what it means or whatever, then they're the ones that, because they decode it in a way using their predetermined views. Does that make sense? So that's where, media literacy is so important. Let's read some comments underneath this. Let's see if there's anything in here. Let's see. It says, I earned a master's in media literacy, and I'm really happy to see this on here. For those engaging in media literacy for the first time, it's important to remember that literacy involves both reading and writing, or in ML's case, interpretation and production. Analyzing how media is created is aided by creating media itself. Once you learn some of the theory behind media, apply it to your own work, and you'll learn a lot more about the media creation process. Just talking to someone is creating media, so your media literacy goes up, and the way you communicate with others change also. You don't necessarily have to be making YouTube videos or TikTok videos or whatever, reels, to be creating media, and be having this literacy impact you in how you create media or whatever. So you can be unknowingly, spreading something that is detrimental to society, if you will, or the other way around. You could be unknowingly spreading something that is, very helpful. Another comment says, the advent of mass media in the information age means that media literacy and being critical of information is more important than ever. It's very good to learn. So yeah, I think that being critical is the main part of media literacy, as far as just not just taking in information on its face for what it is. You have to be critical, and think about it a bit, before you run with it, if you will. I tell my daughters, 95% of the stuff you're getting off the internet is not true. It's not real. It's fake, And I say that over and over, and they give me the funny look in my face, like, oh, he's just an old guy and he doesn't know what he's talking about. You know, this stuff is real. And I'm like, please believe me, this stuff is not real. Okay. It looks real, but it's not. Okay. You know, and if you think it's not real first, you're going to be right more times than you're going to be wrong. Okay? If you think it's real first, you're going to be wrong more times than you're going to be right. Like, without a doubt, the deception is really strong on the internet. So first thing to be is critical and just like, maybe it's real, it could be real, but let's look into it a little bit more. Let's see if we have something that's going to corroborate this story. Let's look at a different source and see what that source says about this same topic. This one, it says, it's crazy to think about how much I can understand about this for the sole reason that I was raised with the social media sense of I began my adolescent years. I cannot imagine the level of social consciousness regarding media literacy the generations to come will possess. Anyways, as always, an excellent video. Yeah, so one of the things I was saying earlier is that things have changed dramatically. So the older generations are going to be less media literate, simply because, the technology has changed and we're inundated with media now. Some of our grandparents or whatever had a lot less media coming at them. So it being necessary to be media literate wasn't as critical as it is now. And given that these kids were born in this technological age, they're automatically going to be more media literate. That, some of these kids can work babies. They can work the phones better than us, like straight off the bat, like without you teaching them anything. Like they're doing stuff on the phone and stuff you may not even know how to do. Like, how did you even do that? Like, show me how you do it. Whenever I'm having some kind of issue with really simple stuff, I ask my kids, I'll be like, hey, what am I doing wrong here? They give me that look, Dad, it's like this, just do this. And I feel stupid. Life goes on. Let me read another one. It says, educating the viewers about the ways they're being manipulated, good or bad, so that they can choose freely is always a good thing, right? So when you're not aware that you're being manipulated, that is a problem. That is the real problem. Then that's the crux of the situation related to media literacy. So, it helps you out dramatically to be more media literate so that you cannot be manipulated so easily. And that's the reason why I wanted to cover this, is because I feel like, the majority of, United States citizens aren't very media literate, and they're being manipulated grossly. And it's having these great impacts on our social structure, having great impacts on our politics. It's having great impact on the way the world is going, because you have people who have their interests and things that they want to accomplish. And because people are so easily manipulated, if they have enough money, to inundate you with these messages, it works. It works too well. I see it. It works too well. Stuff that people should be able to look at and immediately call BS on it. They're not, and they're engulfed by it, and they really believe it. And not only that, it becomes like their crusade, if you will. And it was all bullshit. So much stuff is just straight up BS, and so many people are taken in by it and allowing it to like take over their life. A couple more, I'm gonna move on. It says, this made me so excited as a teacher of media studies. I am thrilled that this is being taught. It is a super relevant for the course. Another one, it says, what I like about Crash Course is that they present us with so much manageable and actually useful information in only 10 minutes or so, something that would usually take days or weeks to learn in school, if we learn it at all. Yeah, Crash Course is pretty cool, man. I've been watching this for years. And whenever, even if I'm taking a class and I may be having a test coming up, I'll look and see if they covered it on Crash Course and watch the video, because, you know, there's got to be some test questions that's going to be in there. Anyways, let's move on. We spent an hour on that. Let's look at some headlines. And, you know, that's what I do too. I like to look at headlines and give analysis of it. So media literacy is kind of what we are learning on this show all the time, even long before I ever mentioned it. Biggest top headline, it says UN official warns that famine in northern Gaza is already full blown. The top UN official says hard-hit northern Gaza is now in full-blown famine after more than 6 months of war between Israel and Hamas and severe Israel restrictions on food deliveries to Palestinian territories. Really sad situation. This photo here, it says, while Palestinians line up for free food during the ongoing Israel air and ground offensive on the Gaza Strip in Rafah, January 9, 2024. A top UN official said Friday, May 3, 2024, that hard-hit northern Gaza was now in full-blown famine after more than 6 months of war between Israel and Hamas, severe Israeli restrictions on food deliveries in the Palestinian territory. AP. Yeah, I was watching a video earlier today about a State Department lady she was head of Arabic something. Was her department, and she resigned, and she said that the U.S. policy related to this situation is not good for Israel, United States, or the Palestinian people. So she said she can't do it anymore. She said she can't be a part of it anymore. It's not good for anyone. And she said that, you know, the corruption, the special interests is the problem. People having personal things that they want to accomplish or whatever, you know, instead of country first, it's me first, you know. It says Israel has briefed U.S. on plan to evacuate Palestinian civilians ahead of potential Rafah operation. Yeah, I heard a story talking about Biden said he's going to bring them to the United States. I know a lot of people would not be happy with that. And also, that would not be good for the Palestinian people. I think a lot of the people, they don't want to come to the United States. They want to live in their own country, you know, and peacefully, and just take care of their kids and go to school and just live like a regular life. Like bringing them to the United States is not the answer. And there was going to be all kind of stipulations on it anyways, like people who pass a certain like type of background checks or whatever, they have connections to people in the United States and stuff like that, are going to be the ones that will be allowed to come. So then what about all the rest of them? Like that's not an answer. That's given, that's not the move. It says Hamas is sending a delegation to Egypt for further ceasefire talks and the latest sign of progress. Hopefully we'll see a ceasefire soon. I mean, you know, we've been talking about it the whole time, but it hasn't happened. So, you know, I guess don't hold your breath on that one. It says Jewish students grapple with how to respond to pro-Palestinian campus protests. The way the media has been covering the campus protest thing is very telling. You know, it comes from one perspective only, you know, and then going down my timeline, all I hear is the other side, you know, and the no media stories are covering it in a fair way. So that's the biggest story that's been happening, is the campus protests. I don't know. We might get into that later. It says Trump Media's newly hired auditing firm was just busted by the SEC for massive fraud. That's not surprising. It says Biden awards the Medal of Freedom to Nancy Pelosi, Medgar Evers, Michelle Yeoh, and 15 others. The Medal of Freedom to Nancy Pelosi. What did Nancy Pelosi do? It's so weird when they give each other awards. It's like we're in the same like little group or whatever, and we're gonna give each other awards. Like, I don't know how much meaning it really has. This one. It says an AI-powered fighter jet took the Air Force leaders. An AI-powered fighter jet took the Air Force leader for a historic ride. What that means for AI-powered fighter jet. They're already using like AI drones in Israel, and like I guess it's the future. You know, if you don't have to worry about losing a human life, and you know just the equipment get destroyed in the war. It kind of makes sense. It says Hope Hicks, ex-Trump advisor, recounts political firestorm in 2016 over Access Hollywood tape. I have no idea what that's about. And I don't really care. Heat wave in Southeast Asia. Mexican officials say 3 bodies recovered in Baja California during search for 3 missing foreigners. South Dakota Governor Neem erroneously describes meeting with North Korea's Kim Jong-un new book. The unexpected under-the-radar Senate race in Michigan that could determine control of the chamber. Yeah, the House is like evenly split. There was a thing about there was a new district drawn up in, was it Louisiana? I want to say it was Louisiana, and a lot of people are not covering it, but that particular deal could have an impact on the balance of power within the House. Because it's a majority black district, and you already know where they're going to vote. It's in the court system right now. They're fighting it. At first they approved it, and then after they approved it, now they're like, nah, we don't like this. World news. Says the Kremlin brands comments on Ukraine by France Macron and Britain's Cameron as dangerous. United Methodist delegates repeal their church ban on its clergy celebrating same-sex marriages. I heard that. That's kind of surprising. It says the UK Conservatives suffer historic losses in local elections as Labour edges closer to power. You know, the way the politics happens over there in the UK is, honestly, it's always a little bit ahead of the US with stuff. So like, let's say over there, they overwhelmingly go conservative or whatever. Then it, for some reason, the way since I've been following politics, it seems like a couple years later, the same thing happens over here in the States. And if it goes the other way, the same thing happens over here in the States. So maybe this is what is the future for happening over here, the way the trends have been going. So it says the UK Conservatives suffer historic losses in local elections as Labour edges closer to power. So I'm thinking that we're going to have the same kind of thing happen over here, where the Conservatives take L's coming up in a few years, or maybe these coming elections. You know, I almost named the show Things Are Getting Crazy, because, you know, we're in election year. And yeah, things are getting crazy. Like a lot of the stuff, like, couldn't have predicted. And I said it was going to get crazy, but I had no idea. Like the protests across the country with the on the universities and colleges. They're arresting people, and then it kind of, it's like stepping on ants. It just makes it worse, and it spreads even more, and that's what's happening. So, like I say, that's crazy, and I don't know if anybody could have predicted that. And as we get closer to the election, it's gonna get crazier. Like, that's what I can say for sure. It's gonna get crazier. What's gonna happen, I have no idea. It's gonna get crazier. And the situation could, the way it's going, but things could flip and change on a dime. But the way things are going, it looks bad. It's looking bad for Biden's win. This one, it says the UN warns Sudan's warring parties that Darfur risks starvation and death if aid isn't allowed. The last show I was talking about the DRC and stuff, and I'm like, we're talking about famine and the Israel-Hamas war, but that's not the only thing that's happening in the world. And it's horrible stuff happening in other places. And I guess that goes into what we're talking about with media literacy, where it seems certain lives are more important than others. And, the media tends to focus on certain things, and other things they kind of just brush under the rug. You can't cover everything. Yes, I agree. But 24-hour coverage of the university's protests seems kind of weird when there's so much other things going on in the world. Says AP decision notes what to expect in Indiana's presidential and state primaries. The race for the White House tops the ballot Tuesday in Indiana's presidential and state primaries, but voters will also have to settle more competitive contests for governor, Congress, and state legislature. We could have a situation where Trump wins, and then the Democrats overwhelmingly take over the House and the Senate. And I think that's my prediction. I think that's what we're going to see. And it's going to be really tough for Trump to get his stuff done, because he'll have to work across the aisle to get anything done, because they're going to have to pass whatever he does, and they're going to be on the other side of a lot of the stuff. I think that's what's going to happen. It's going to be the Democrat majority in the House and the Senate, and you're going to have a Republican president. I'm just a guy who knows what's going to happen. It says half of U.S. adults mistrust media coverage of 2024 election, a poll finds. Wow, interesting. Here goes media literacy again. Half of U.S. adults mistrust media coverage of 2024 elections. It says about half of Americans say they're extremely or very concerned that news organizations will report inaccuracies or misinformation during the election. Some 42% express worry that news outlets will use generative artificial intelligence to create stories, according to a poll. Well, see, that's where media literacy come in, because whenever they do polls, you want to know where they did it, how many people they asked, and what were the specific questions, because that really matters. As far as what happened with the election and like fraud or whatever, like you had Trump saying, he got cheated or whatever. And even before the election actually happened, he was saying, if I lose, I got cheated or whatever. So and a lot of people are loyal to him. So they're looking for things to support what he said or whatever, looking for evidence for that or whatever. But we see all of these things that happen. People have gone to jail. It's more and more is coming out. The shadiness that was happening, fake delegates and so forth, even what January 6th, like a lot of people want to be all emotional about January 6th. And I heard somebody comparing January 6th to the protests the university protests, and I'm like, the university protest folks are not trying to overturn an election, bro. They're in, that is not what they're trying to accomplish. That's what they were trying to accomplish on January 6th. Okay, like literally, the people were trying to, it was a formality that happens where they, give the delegates officially over, and they were trying to stop that process from happening. That's what they were trying to do. Okay, like that is a reality. Like you guys can be mad about it or whatever, but that is what they were trying to do. Okay, and so all of that comes to the, what happens with the shadiness with the elections mostly has to do with the way they draw up districts. Okay, the gerrymandering is the major part of it. Okay, as far as actual voter fraud is very rare. Okay, they do it in other ways. Like, I'm not saying that everything is legit. I'm saying that thousands of absentee ballots from dead people is not what happened or happens. That is not it. Voting machines that switch your vote to something else is not what happened. Is not what happens. They can check all of that stuff, bro. Like, if that does happen, there will be evidence to show it. That is not how it goes. Okay, so the media does tell stories, and they do have an impact on like that's why they don't announce the winners like they did, because they had what was it? It was Hillary Clinton. When Hillary Clinton was running, I want to say it was that year, and you had one of the news sources claiming who the winner was before all of the ballots was in, and even before people were finished voting, like people were still in line to cast their ballot, and they were saying that it had an impact. People just went home because they're like, oh, it's over, such and such won, so they just went home or whatever. They didn't even cast a ballot, So now they don't do that anymore. They wait. And the other thing is, like, they think is shadiness happening because votes come in at different times or whatever. Like, it'll be showing one person up, and then all of a sudden it'll be a surge on the other for the other guy. But if you learn how the things work as far as the absentee ballots coming in later, and what's a real problem is that the states all have different ways that they do these things. The in-person ballots get voted first or whatever. Certain districts close earlier than others. The absentee ballots come later, and all of this BS causing confusion. If we could solve all of that by having all the states follow the same procedures on it, and we can have all the results at the same time, and you won't have that impression that shadiness is going on. We could have a holiday for voting, a voting holiday, so where everyone is off of work and everyone is off of school, and people have time to go vote, and it's all on the same day, and and instantly have the results instead of and have them count the absentee ballots first. They need to come in like a day before or something like that to be counted, and boom. But this is America. We like it to be confusing. Oh man. It says 42% express worry that news outlets will use generative artificial intelligence to create stories, according to a poll. They probably will, man. They probably will. They want to save money, just like the bad movies. The news is the quality is really low. They just want to make money. So fewer actual journalists is better for their bottom line, Just get the computer to write some stories. Sad times. Let's look a little bit at this article because this one is interesting to me. There's a video. It's not loading. No ads. No ads. We don't like ads over here. Not interested in what you're selling.
Press Institute and the AP Nork Center finds that when it comes to coverage of the 2024 presidential election, about half of Americans are extremely or very concerned that news outlets will report inaccurate information. 53% of US adults are concerned that news outlets will report inaccurate information or disinformation in their coverage of the 2024 presidential election. And 42% worry that news outlets will use generative artificial intelligence to create stories. On many of these topics, Republicans are more likely than US adults overall, Democrats and independents, to be concerned. And as the election approaches, most Americans say that in order for them to make informed decisions about the national and state elections, they want news outlets to report on the candidates' key values and stances on social issues.
I handled the bills back then. I mean, there were tight years. Now it's my nest egg and I don't have to worry.
And you know what sucks is a lot of times we don't know what's the platform of the candidates, you know, what their policies are. I don't understand why it's so difficult for that information. You know, we tend to get that information from commercials, and the commercials be biased and misleading. Like what they do, you'll have a person who's running against someone who will, you know, do commercials for that other person, like, and mislead the public on what their policies are, you know, and it should be set up in a way that we actually know what these people's policies are, you know, what their platform is. But again, I mean, like I say, this is the United States. Confusion is the name of the game, and it, you know, not knowing where these people really are, it usually is the case all the way up until election day. It's freaking sad. Why is it that way? Where's the actual article? They just did a video and that's it. Where's the article? I don't see it. What did I do? I know I did something wrong. A long ad at the end. Oh, it's not an article, it's just a video. They don't do articles no more. They're like, we're not touching this topic. She seemed like she was scared telling the story. Anyways, how y'all feeling out there? Y'all good? How do y'all feel about it? You think that the news media is going to be biased and confusing and misleading when it comes to the election? Like, absolutely. Without a doubt. Probably just turn the damn TV off at that time. More election news. It says Biden and Trump offer worlds apart contrast on issues in 2024. Rare contest between two presidents. What do they mean by that? It hasn't happened in almost anyone's lifetime. Two presidents squaring off in one election. Joe Biden and his predecessor, Donald Trump, have track records in office that voters will judge alongside their promises. Oh, okay, I get what they're saying. I don't know if they're worlds apart, though. I would disagree with that. It says Republicans filed lawsuit to block count of Nevada mail ballots received after Election Day. Yeah, I mean that just draws out the whole thing, causes problems, man. Just get if you're so concerned about your vote getting counted, make sure your shit gets there the day before or the day of or whatever. Don't wait till the last fucking second to mail your shit in. Like it shouldn't be still counting ballots after the election. Like that's stupid. It says the Republican National Committee is suing to stop Nevada from being able to count mail ballots received in election offices after Election Day. Like, that's dumb. New Jersey governor sets July primary and September special election to fill Payne's House seat. New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy has set a July primary and a September general election to fill the New York-based U.S. House seat that opened after Democratic officials criticized Meta ad policy, saying it amplifies lies about 2020 election. Several Democrats serving as their state top election officials have sent a letter to parent company of Facebook asking to stop allowing ads that claim the 2020 presidential election was stolen. It gets clicked. Meta just want to make money. They don't care about what's the truth. That should not be the case, man. Crazy times. Let's see. Where my dog's at? Do I want to go to Twitter or Instagram? Little Gazas. Let's go to Twitter.
We're here to discuss the little Gazas that have risen up on campuses across America and the liberal college administrators and politicians who refuse to restore law and order and to protect other students. These little Gazas are disgusting cesspools of anti-Semitic hate, full of pro-Hamas sympathizers, fanatics, and freaks. The terrorist sympathizers in these little Gazas aren't peacefully protesting Israel's conduct of the war. They're violently and illegally demanding death for Israel, just like their ideological twins, the Ayatollahs in Iran. We're here to
How do they get to go up there and say stuff that's like blatantly untrue? It says, college campuses are little Gazas insofar as they're comprised of innocent people being violently crushed with Israeli trained soldiers and American-made weaponry. Beyond your grave, posted this. The way the media has covered this topic is completely one-sided. It says, with the rise in poverty, homelessness in the U.S., along with the rise in authoritarianism, we can probably expect many more little Gazas to pop up all over the country. People need to understand that Palestinian struggle for freedom is our struggle. They're linked. No one is free until we're all free and okay. Comment, it says, it's obscene that an American senator can go on and rant like this against American college students for Israel. It says, are these people even serious? A bunch of spoiled rich children playing dress up badly as men with midriffs out and fake lashes wouldn't fare well in a real Intifada revolution context. Being told to stop breaking the law, trespassing, or occupation of public property is not repression. I definitely am not someone who generally agree with Cotton, but here the mockery is completely warranted. Spoiled rich kids playing dress up. Stop breaking the law. They wasn't doing anything to break the law. They were students on the campus that they go to campus. That's where they go to school at. And the situation didn't get violent until police was involved or the anti-protesters showed up. Let's see, do we have some replies to her? It says, how Hamas expelled occupiers and trespassers on Palestinian sovereign land. How do you feel about that? It says, okay, so now you know the line of you personally to start agreeing with the bigot who said slavery was a necessary evil was to watch students get beat up by cops on their own campuses. Your new ally also supports banning abortion and gay marriage, FYI. It says, fun fact, a good chunk of college students aren't rich and instead had to take out a loan to get an education because most jobs won't hire people who don't have a degree. If only rich people went to college, America would only have like one university college per state. It says, so are college students spoiled rich kids or beggars looking for a free handout? Pick a side. No, we're not playing that. Let's play this.
Muzungu, if you're a white person coming to Kenya, Tanzania, or Uganda, be prepared to hear this word from morning until night, because this is how the Swahili-speaking locals refer to white people. It all started with this man, David Livingstone, a Scottish missionary and explorer who is famous for being the first European to cross the African continent from east to west. Livingstone was literally obsessed with finding the source of the Nile and started one of his famous expeditions in 1866 on the island of Zanzibar. The Swahili-speaking people on the island, they were minding their own business as usual, but they were so confused about these people coming from faraway lands because to them it looked like Livingstone and his crew were senselessly spinning around on the same spot. And that is exactly when the word Muzungu first came into existence. So the word Muzungu is a derivation from the verb zungu, which literally means spinning around on the same spot. And Muzungu means a person that is spinning around on the same spot. Muzungu, if you're a white person coming to Kenya, Tanzania, or Uganda, be prepared to hear this word from morning.
Little fun fact. Then they were saying that it was a derogatory term, but I'm willing to bet that it still is, even though her definition probably is right. It says, in East Africa, locals often refer to white visitors from Europe and the U.S. as Mzungu, and it occasionally prompts concern among non-Swahili speakers that it could be derogatory. But as our Ethiopian sister, Wayne Tesfaye, here explains, the word is no slur. She says it's originated in the 19th century when European explorers landed on the continent. Among them was Scotsman David Livingstone, who was looking for the source of the river Nile. Locals on the island of Zanzibar wondered about this visitor who seemed to be spinning or wandering around the area in search of something. Hence was formed Mzungu, meaning one who spins around or wanders. Since then, Mzungu has evolved to mean any white person. Do you know any interesting African word etymologies? Please share in the comments. Yeah, I bet the definition is true, but I'm willing to bet that it's still derogatory. This one it says, Isizungu in Zulu means boredom. Mzungu could mean one who is constantly bored or one who has a cloud of boredom around them. Mulungu, member of a clan. Mulumbai, one with strange ways. So no wonder hawkers are known as Abezungzugui Kinyarwanda. It says, let her not even spin that word and twist it to mean a wandering person. In the literal sense, they're wandering who seem to have an appetite for people's natural resources. Bazungu are very sketchy, dishonest, slithery shapes shifters who have mastered the art of deception, Shane. Like I said, I wouldn't be surprised. And when you don't know the language, they can just tell you that it means whatever. Let's play this.
The U.S. government can't go bankrupt because we can print our own money.
It obviously begs the question, why exactly are we borrowing in a currency that we print ourselves? I'm waiting for someone to stand up and say, why do we borrow our own currency in the first place?
Like you said, they print the dollar. So why does the government even borrow?
Well, again, some of this stuff gets, some of the language that some of the language and concepts are just confusing. I mean, the government definitely prints money, and it definitely lends that money, which is why the government definitely prints money, and then it lends that money by selling bonds. Is that what they do? They sell bonds. Yeah, they sell bonds, right? Because they sell bonds and people buy the bonds and lend them the money. Yeah. So a lot of times, at least to my ear with MMT, the language and the concepts can be kind of unnecessarily confusing, but there is no question that the government prints money and then it uses that money to yeah, I guess I can't really talk. I don't get it. I don't know what they're talking about. Like, because it's like the government clearly prints money. It does it all the time, and it clearly borrows. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having this debt and deficit conversation. So I don't think there's anything confusing there.
I don't think there's anything confusing there. When you are confusing the hell out of us with your way you're speaking, you're obviously confused on the topic. It's not confusing, but I can't explain what I'm trying to explain because I'm not confused, but it's not confusing at all. So it's like the Federal Reserve is a private bank. It's not government. First off, first fact, the government pays them back with interest from what they give them. Okay, from my understanding. So first off, there's that, which he should have mentioned, you know, the Federal Reserve being privately owned and not a government entity. What else? Now I'm confused thinking about the confusion that this guy was saying. Let me read this. It says, this is absolutely priceless and probably the most frightening clip you'll ever watch on the people in charge of the U.S. economy. Jared Bernstein is literally the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, the main agency advising Biden on economic policy. It says, Biden's chief economist literally has no idea how bonds work. This is actually kind of crazy. I didn't think they were this dumb, knowing how bonds work. Hold on. And as far as the deficit, the deficit part of it has to do with our trade with other countries, right? So like China holds a lot of debt because of the products that we get from them. So that's another thing he should have mentioned, was that the debt isn't internal. It's like, how could we owe ourselves anyways? Like, that doesn't make any sense. You know, we owe others. See, now I'm confused, trying to explain the stuff that this guy said. Like, let's read some comments. It says, beyond scary, either he knows absolutely nothing about economics or his IQ begins with a decimal point, which is actually the choice for all MMT advocates. It says, I watched it yesterday. It shows you why Ivy League schools are producing. What Ivy League schools are producing. It says, Jared Bernstein, literally the chair of the Council of Economic Advisors, the main agency advising Biden on economic policy, has a degree in music and social work. Oh, snap. No wonder. I mean, let's see this. They must have got this from Wikipedia, but it's probably true. This looks like Wikipedia. It says Bernstein stated he grew up in a musical family and aspired to be a professional musician as a young person. Bernstein graduated with a bachelor's degree in music from the Manhattan School of Music, where he studied double bass with Oren O'Brien. Throughout the 80s, Jared was a mainstay on the jazz scene in NYC. He also earned a Master of Schoolwork from Hunter College, as well as DSW in Social Welfare from Columbia University's School of Social Work. At Columbia, his dissertation advisor was Irwin Gerfinkel. He's a Jewish descendant. Yeah, so, you know, I'm a College of Liberal Arts and Social Science major. And the reason why I chose that is because it's not nearly as much math as, you know, tech degrees. So this guy here, that social work, that's going to be liberal arts degrees. And the music, that's going to be in that area like me. And I'm willing to bet that he didn't have to take very much math to get his degree. Like, we just have to take basic math, like college algebra. I think that's it. College algebra, I think that's the only one we have to pass. And all the other math we don't have to pass. So this guy is an economic policy advisor, and I didn't even take math in college. And I'm not knocking any liberal arts majors, because that's what I am. You know, it's just what drives me is, you know, that kind of stuff. And also I struggle with math. So, you know, I want to be able to complete my degree. So I don't want to put stuff in there that I'm going to struggle with that's going to make it towards maybe I don't graduate. You know what I'm saying? So, you know, that's part of the reason why I made the decision that I made. I'm willing to bet that this guy was thinking along those same lines. But then he lands as an economic advisor, didn't even take math in college. This one, it says the U.S. Treasury sells bonds, a form of borrowing to fund government spending. The Federal Reserve prints money, which is actually just creating money out of thin air, and digitally transfer this liquidity to major banks to pad their balance sheets so they can lend it out and stimulate the economy, which also creates inflation. Yeah, so the Federal Reserve is private, so they're like, you know, we'll print the money. How much money y'all need? Cool, we got y'all. No problem. This one, it says, no, the Federal Reserve buys assets, particularly U.S. Treasury securities, in the open market. This process is known as open market operations. When the Fed buys these securities, it creates the selling bank's reserves at the Fed, which increases the amount of money that banks have available to lend. There's no direct transfer of money to the banks to pad their balance sheets. Reply to that, it says, what difference does it make? The buy thing is created from nothing and then sends money to pay for those useless things into the bank's balance sheets. It's the same as if had printed the money directly without the circus show. We need to know more about this. Let's look this up right quick. What's the best way to look this up? Let's look at this right quick. Let's get some clarity on this. It says, what are bonds and how do they work? A bond is a loan to a company or government. It pays it pays investors a fixed rate of return. See how they may work for you. Yeah, see, like I understand bonds to a certain extent. Bonds and CDs and bonds, they're similar. You know, it's the CD is locked, like, and you can't touch it over a certain period of time. And, you know, you get the interest. It gives you a higher interest rate because you can't touch the money over whatever period of time that, you know, the CD goes for. Let's read. It says, a bond is a loan to a company or government that pays investors a fixed rate of return over a specific time frame. Bonds are a key ingredient in a balanced portfolio. Long-term government bonds historically earn around 5% in average annual returns versus the 10% historic average annual returns of stocks. A bond's risk is based mainly on the issuer's credit worthiness. Interest rates also influence a bond's value. The relatively safety of bonds helps balance the risk associated with stock-based investments. So yeah, I understand that the bonds are safer, you know, than trading in the stock market because anything can happen. You know, a company could just go kaput. So, but then the government backs the bonds, so therefore they're more safer or sound. It says a bond is a loan to a company or government that pays investors to a fixed rate of return. The borrower uses the money to fund its operations, and the investor receives interest on the investment. The market value of a bond can change over time. Long-term government bonds historically earn an average of 5% annual returns. A bond is also a fixed income instrument, which is one of the three main asset classes or groups of similar investments frequently used in investing. Most investment portfolios should include some bonds, which help balance out the risk over time. If the stock market plummets, bonds can help cushion the blow. In simple terms, a bond is a loan from an investor to a borrower, such as a company or government. So what was the other question? It was, what was the guy? He said, hold on. He was talking about the money going to, he was like, what did he say? The debt about the government. So Federal Reserve. Does the Federal Reserve print money? Hold on, let's see this. Federal Reserve print money. Let's share this. It says, does the Federal Reserve print money? It says, one of the most common questions about the Federal Reserve is this: does the Fed print money? There are really two ways to address this question. In terms of the actual physical printing, no. The Fed doesn't actually print or produce money in any form. Coins come from the U.S. Mint, and paper currency comes from the U.S. Treasury Bureau of Engraving and Printing. The Fed distributes currency after it's printed. So it's saying that the U.S. Mint and the U.S. Treasury prints the money, and then the Fed distributes it. So what? They just give it over to the... It says controlling how much money is available. However, what many questioners might really be asking is whether the Fed has the ability to control how much money is in our economy. That's a different story. The Fed adds or subtracts from the amount of money in the economy by buying or selling U.S. Treasury securities and other financial instruments. This is referred to as open market operations. Since these transactions take place in the open market, the Fed isn't allowed to buy securities directly from the U.S. Treasury. The Fed pays for these securities by crediting funds to the reserve that banks are required to hold, either cash in the vaults or deposits at a reserve bank. So in that sense, we can think of printing money as adding reserves to the banking system, said David Wheelock, Vice President of Deputy Director of Research. Why expand the money supply? As we like pointing out, these additional reserves enable banks to make more loans. So the process of creating reserves enables banks to make more loans, which expands the supply of money, he said. That's kind of what everybody was saying too, kind of. So, but then if it's all about loans, then it's about like debt. So it's all about the debt. So the value of the money is based on a debt that someone is holding. If I'm interpreting that correctly. So it's like printing. It says on the money, what does it say? It says the debtor's note. It says Federal Reserve note. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. That's what it says. This note is legal tender for all debts, public and private. I guess the debt is what's important, right? Y'all help me out with this. I'm not a math major. And I'll learn together, though. Why did you bring up the Federal Reserve? Are we underneath the post? Hold on, let me see. Let me share this with y'all. Let's read this one. It says, exactly, it's gotten so out of control that the U.S. government can't even afford the interest payments on their own treasuries. The true answer as to why the government borrows money is because it's insolvent. The U.S. government is broke. It says, where does the money come from to buy bonds the UST sells? Yeah, I think that situation is convoluted and complicated for a reason. This guy clearly doesn't really understand it, and he's the guy who, you know, chief economist. If this guy doesn't understand it, can't expect the rest of us to understand it, and maybe it's not intending for you to understand it. It's this one. It says the U.S. Treasury sells bonds, a form of borrowing to fund government spending. It says the Federal Reserve prints money, which is actually just creating money out of thin air, and digitally transfers the liquidity to major banks to pad their balance sheets. I read that one. This one, it says this video can't be real. It has to be AI. There's no way that these people hold a high level position. Not possible. Not going to buy it. It says, how in the world did he get in the position he has? It says, Javier cut with 1/4 of the government and the services got better, right? This is proof why that works. It says the dude making the only relevant point, finance is confusing, but we print. It says they're about to issue 10 trillion in bonds, madness. It says the language is confusing, LOL. His own language seemed confusing to himself. That's what I got from it too. It says, this is horrifying, scary, yes, surprising, no. This is like the NFL coach explaining the rules of football and not knowing what punting is, astounding. It says, my goodness, but not a surprise seeing the disastrous results of their disastrous effort over the past 3+ years. It says, wow, I always thought this guy was a clown. The reality is so much worse. He's struggling to understand it's a Ponzi scheme, borrowing money and then putting money to pay it back. Ponzi scheme, that sounds like more like true to me. Like the whole damn thing is like that. Freaking level marketing company. You know what I mean? Pyramid schemes. Let's see. Alex Jones. I didn't even listen to this, so no telling what this guy's about to say.
I demand Benjamin Netanyahu take 20 Palestinians in his house.
I think he be mispronouncing people's names on purpose. It's kind of funny.
I demand Benjamin Netanyahu take 20 Palestinians in his house.
In his house? He sounds like a preacher.
And his candy-ass son in Miami suit up in body armor and go to Gaza and fight these people or get the hell out of my world. And I don't say that because I hate Jews. I say that because I'm not a toilet bowl you sit on and shit on. I'm not here to eat your fucking shit. You fucking got that? I demand Benjamin Netanyahu take 20 Palestinians in his house.
That's not going to happen. He said, I'm not here to eat your shit. It says Biden has officially announced a plan to bring at least 1 million Gazan refugees to the United States. I say we relocate Benjamin Netanyahu to Rafah instead of him relocating it to the U.S. That's how you know he be mispronouncing the names on purpose, because he even spelled it that way. It's pretty funny, you know. Overall, the guy's entertaining. I don't want to eat your shit. I feel him on that, though. I'm scared to read this stuff. It says right-wing Jews promote wars that displace Muslims from their native lands. Left-wing Jews open Western borders to said displaced Muslims. Result: Israel dominance in the Mideast while lowering the risk of nationalism manifesting in Western nations. Perfect synergy. I don't know if I really get that. It says they talk about it like people of Gaza want to come here. They don't. That's what I said. They literally don't want to leave their land and homes. That's the point. Israel is brutally expelling them. That's why, you know, Biden bringing them here would, you know, Israel will be happy with that. It's just like, okay, yeah, that's good. That works for us. Exactly what we want. It says the people of Gaza have suffered enough already. Please don't inflict this on them. It says if you're white and Christian, they want you dead. It's very simple. Where are they getting that from? It says this was their plan from the start. Siding with the Palestinian anti-Semitism, it's anti-war. Israel pulling America into conflict and dumping refugees on us. It's Israel versus America, not Jews versus Muslims. 529. Who is this guy? I don't even recognize him. And his mustache is bothering me.
And when I look at the conflict, it's not necessarily that I'm pro-Palestine. It's more that I'm anti-Israel. Because when you look at this situation, you realize the Palestinians have no power. The Muslims have no power. So when people try to make this about Jews versus Muslims, and they say, well, I'm not going to take a side because I'm a Christian American. So I'm not going to take a side. Let the Muslims and the Jews fight each other. That's really not the nature of our involvement here. We are on the side of the Jews. Our country is on the side of Israel. Fully and completely and totally. And it's because they wield influence in our society. And as I've articulated, our major interests here, notice Muslims have nothing to do with it. Hezbollah does not want a war with us. Iran does not want a war with us. The Palestinians don't want to come here. They want to stay there. The Arabs don't want the Palestinians to come here. They want them to stay there. The Muslims are not the problem. And even the Palestinian protesters in America, The Palestinian protesters, yeah, they're brown. Yeah, they're Muslim. Yeah, they're third worldist. Yeah, they don't give a shit about America.
That's
But when
not
they're
true.
in Chicago and New York and DC, they're protesting for the things we want. Hello? Those two things I just laid out, they agree with us on those things. They agree for maybe the wrong reasons, but they agree. When those Palestinians are protesting, they are protesting the fact that we are getting involved, and they're protesting the fact that the Palestinians are being forced out and ultimately here. So the Muslims there and the Muslims here are not the problem for us. When you look at our two strategic interests, which is a widening of the war that we will be involved in, and the fact that we will have to accept refugees because they will not be allowed to return, the problem is Israel. For both of those things, Israel is standing in the way of us achieving our strategic objectives here. So it's not actually a battle between Muslims and Jews over there, because you cannot understand the conflict without America's role in it. If it was just Muslims and Jews killing each other, guess what? The Jews would not be in this fight. If the Jews had to fight Hamas and they had to worry about Hezbollah and Iran and the Houthis and the Islamic resistance, and they didn't have America supporting them, it'd be a different equation. It'd be a different story.
That's true.
And if that were the case, you know, maybe I would be a little more ambivalent. Maybe I would be apathetic. If Israel said, we're going to go it alone against Hamas and let us worry about Hezbollah and Iran and the rest, I'd say, okay, yeah, knock yourself out. Maybe I would have a problem with the Muslims. If the Muslims in the streets were saying, you need to relieve Hezbollah, you need to relieve Iran, we're getting our asses kicked, I'd say, okay, why don't you leave? You're the problem. We need to clean these guys up out of the streets. But that's not the case. Israel is only able to fight this war with America. If it wasn't for us there, they couldn't do it.
True.
So we are an integral, necessary part of this war because of Israel. Israel is forcing us politically at gunpoint to be in there, getting bombed, getting dragged further and further into a world war,
I don't know how
and
they-
ultimately into accepting their refugees. They want to send these people out of their country and into ours. So who's the problem? Israel's dumping their people on us, and Israel is making us fight their wars. So it's really Israel versus America. On some level in this war, that is where the conflict is occurring. It's happening in Washington. It's not happening over there. So I've said from the beginning that is why we are on the side of the Palestinians. It's really got nothing to do. I don't care about self-determination of foreign peoples. I mean, on some level, I will offer them like moral support, but that's got nothing to do with what America's military should do. And I say that because if people were to say, well, what about Kurdish self-determination? I don't care. What about Ukraine's self-determination? Don't care. Really don't care. What about Turkestan's self-determination? Don't care. Hong Kong, don't care. Don't care. But America isn't being, well, and by the way, when it comes to Ukraine, I don't support America going over there. Russia's not the problem. Ukraine is. Palestine's not the problem. Israel is. China's not the problem. Taiwan is. It's that simple. Because we are a global hegemon, we are constantly having to fight to say no, but specifically to these very influential countries, including the most influential country, which is Israel.
Why is Israel so influential is a question that I have. Like, how? He said they're politically holding us at gunpoint. How? I mean, I think he's right to a certain extent. I don't agree with him wholeheartedly, but I think he's right. But how? How is that the case? I think he's a little bit misguided, but overall, I think he's got a good little view on it. A logical view. Oh, I'm getting tired, y'all. I've been on for 2 hours now. I need somebody to get in here, chop it up with me so I can rest my voice. Let's go to Insta.
In the spring of 1969, a group of students at Morehouse College, historically black college in Atlanta, were frustrated by what they said was the school's slow progress on civil rights. And they protested, they'd been rebuffed. So they locked the college trustees in their office for 2 days and essentially held them hostage. Now, one of the trustees was Martin Luther King Sr., father of the recently slain civil rights leader. He began having chest pains, and one of the students later said, "We let him out of there so he wouldn't be accused of murder." That student and his classmates eventually gave up under a promise of amnesty from the college. The college reneged, and he was expelled. It would be years before he was rehabilitated, decades before he became known the world over as actor Samuel L. Jackson. Now, I tell this story for two reasons. One, to remind us that college activism has long been a part of college education. The other reason, though, is to get a sense of proportion, which seems lacking today. As we watch the disturbing imagery emerge from campuses at Columbia, UCLA, University of Texas, University of South Florida, so many others, where cops, or in some cases mobs, took down pro-Palestinian student encampments and protests, as well as professors and journalists and just random bystanders. The cumulative effect of all this coverage, along with some unverified assertions from police and politicians, has been to drive home the idea that student protests are basically a terrorist level threat, that they have to be neutralized by battalions of cops armed like soldiers with MRAPs and sonic cannons. The reason this seems to me a reaction that's out of proportion to the protests themselves. It seems especially true when you look at some other campuses like Brown University, where administrators negotiated with student protesters who took down their encampment, and Wesleyan University, whose president said the protesting there was nonviolent and non-disruptive, adding, as long as it continues in this way, the university will not attempt to clear the encampment. Now, these universities, crucially, have reiterated their important existing rules against anti-Semitic invective and harassment, certainly, while also protecting assembly, which seems sensible, also out of step with what you're seeing elsewhere. Because ever since October 7th, when Hamas committed its atrocities in Israel, there has been this obsessive media focus on college campuses. And that's true partly because there are genuine issues worth debating, including the degree to which universities are creating spaces that are hostile to pro-Israel Jewish students, where they feel under threat, or universities, the degree to which they're suppressing pro-Palestinian speech. And those issues really do matter. But the way that so many prominent voices have focused so exclusively on colleges feels honestly a bit decadent to me. Like we're doing a paper doll version of the conflict, because the actual reality of what's happening in Gaza is so horrific, unceasing, and high stakes. It's more enjoyable to argue about what college kids are doing than to confront the human misery and destruction that's happening in the actual conflict. That is, of course, the source of these protests. What seems most worth debating isn't campus speech, but whether the U.S. government should continue to fund and support an Israeli war in Gaza that has pushed more than 1 million people to the brink of famine, a war that has damaged half of the buildings in Gaza, a war that has failed to bring home most of the hostages held by Hamas, that has in fact led to the death of some of those hostages, as well as the deaths of an estimated 34,000 Palestinians, including roughly 10,000 women and 13,000 children. Is that ongoing effort morally defensible? Is it strategically wise? Are we as a nation doing the right or wrong thing in continuing to support it? What I find particularly maddening about our focus on the protesters of the conflict is that it's an invasion. It avoids the difficult task of being universally empathetic to our fellow human beings and truly reckoning with the scale of devastation that is wrought by our country in our names, with our support. In the aftermath of 9/11, we waged a global war on terror for 2 decades that killed an estimated 430,000 people, many of them children, women, elderly, innocents. In Vietnam, we are estimated to have killed more than 1 million people, huge swaths of them civilians, women, children, male non-combatants, old people, and the like. Can you even make sense of those numbers? I can't. No one can. It's hard to think of them, to contend with them as actual real human beings who lived lives before he took them, who are people like you or I, who were loved by the people in their lives. It is much easier to get angry at the spoiled brats on college campuses. Why are they being so disruptive? What are they so upset about? If you feel that way, which I can understand, honestly, I felt irritation and anger at protesters many times in my life, even ones I was ostensibly on the same side as, broadly speaking. If you feel that way, just try recasting the question. Why are all these people so upset that we're helping a government wage a brutal war that's killed 13,000 children? The question kind of answers itself. To take seriously the scale of human suffering that's happening in Gaza doesn't mean you must come down the side of the protesters, certainly. There are many people who think the war is a brutal but necessary campaign for Israel's defense. What it does necessitate is that you weigh all the human suffering against the actual end game of the conflict that is currently being waged and is unarticulated as of now. A conflict the U.S. continues to support. Our humanity demands we focus on those questions first and last. In the spring of 1969,
Yeah, I think his framing of it is really good as far as like the reason why they're focusing on the protests is it's an evasive measure to kind of avoid the real subject matter of the situation, you know, being upset with the protesters is a way to not deal with the horror of the situation. You know, the protesters, a lot of them are Jewish, by the way, are saying that the universities are complicit and that they need to divest, you know, from, you know, making money off of this situation. But so the people don't want to focus on what it is that's actually happening. They want to focus on the protesters, and the media is a perfect way to give Israel a pass is by focusing on these protesters and you know, in these universities across the nation instead of talking about the real topic of what is sparking the protests. So let's not talk about what is actually happening. Let's talk about the protests. So yeah, I think that was really good framing there. And most of the media is not framing this in that way. Comments, it says the role of police needs to be redefined to this country. It's supposed to be protect and serve, not intimidate and subdue. You know, I disagree as far as, I mean, it says protect and serve, but, you know, protect and serve what or who maybe is the question. You know, I feel like it's all about property. Protect property and serve the influential, if you will, the 1%, if you will, for the most part, because historically, if the part where it says not to intimidate and subdue, historically, intimidate and subdue has been what they do. Let me read this. It says, imagine if instead of seeing violent protests on college campuses, we saw thoughtful debate, ideas for peace, informational forums providing people with history, nuance, and different perspective. Imagine if the world saw us modeling Jews, Muslims, Christians, etc., all learning together, living together side by side, supporting each other. And that is actually what's happening in a lot of cases on these campuses. And it's framed as a us versus them or whatever, but that has not been the case. You know, these students that go to these universities are Jews, they are Muslims, they are Christians, you know, liberals, conservatives, and they are actually sitting around and having forums where they talk about the history and nuance and different perspectives. It's a reason to bust it up, okay? You know, that's not what they want, the powers that be or whatever. Like I say, I've been watching a lot of this and it's been going down my timeline, and that is exactly what's happening on the college campuses between the ones that are there. You know, the ones that are hanging out with the tents and stuff, like talking about the situation and sharing information and different perspectives or whatever, you know. And again, like I really like this comment right here. And if that is what spread it across the nation, that would be great, but it wouldn't be good for the powers that be. So bust it up, you know, arrest those folks over there talking about the nuanced history and trying to come to a general consensus of they think they are. You know, and the comments about these people being young and ignorant or whatever, like those parts, it really bothers me a lot. You know, they saying that they're young and they're stupid. They don't know anything. That's the reason why they're doing what they're doing or whatever. And it's like, come on, man. Like some of these kids, they are graduate students. Some of them are PhD students. Like these kids know stuff. Okay. Like you want to discount them just because they're young. You know, how many classes have you sat through? Like how many books have you read? How much stuff have you learned? You know, these in 4, 8, 10 years of being in the university, these kids have learned stuff. They may be young, but they've learned a lot of stuff. You can't dismiss them just because they're young and say that they don't know things. You got grown adults that literally don't know stuff. They've been spending their time freaking watching TV. Like they aren't learning things. Like you have to learn stuff. The thing about being in a university, like if you don't pass your classes, you drop out. You gotta be, you know, learning stuff to be able to continue to stay, you know, a student. Like, I don't know, you know, I've had that perspective that the young folks don't know stuff or whatever. I'll be sitting in the classroom with all of these young kids and I'll be thinking that too, that they don't know stuff. And like, it's true on certain things, like, you know, life types of stuff, like experience types of stuff. But as far as like data, information, knowledge about certain topics, the stuff that they've been learning about, like sometimes it's intimidating. You know, I hear them talking and I'm like, man, I didn't know that or whatever. They say something else. Man, I didn't know that. And all my years of learning stuff and I haven't come across that particular information. You know, I think that people who learn stuff, like I was in a class when I was in a community college and it was a class about the oceans and stuff. Really interesting stuff. And it's like, I didn't know none of that stuff. And the class was hard. It was difficult. And the instructor, we got to talking about something, and my major is anthropology, and I learned a lot of stuff, you know, related to like evolution, you know, early man and stuff like that. And when I start talking about it, I could see how the instructor, she was like worried or whatever, like as far as she knew that I knew stuff about stuff that she didn't know about, if that makes any sense. And that's coming from the instructor. So that's what you have to understand, is that just because this person is an instructor and they know a lot of stuff about whatever they know a lot of stuff about, doesn't mean that me as a student don't know stuff about stuff that the instructor doesn't know about. Does that make any sense? So people who learn stuff, they know that other people learn stuff and they're all aware that of their ignorance. You know, that's what they say. Like the man who knows is the man who knows he doesn't know anything. So the person that's ignorant is the one who thinks he knows stuff. Focuses on and learn stuff about, they can share that. But if you get to the point where you're like, oh, you're young, you can't teach me anything, then you're missing stuff. And that's the reason why you continue to stay ignorant. It's comments. It says, everyone that has been paying attention knows the end game, the land theft and ethnic cleansing by Israel, sponsored by the U.S. Another one said, and them coming to the United States would fit that perfectly. Another comment says, Chris, thank you for that statement. It is most enlightened and intelligent thing I've heard since the beginning of this horror. Nuance is hard, Anger and fighting are easier. We need to be brought to reason somehow. Keep repeating your message. It's the only way to peace. Yeah, man. So the thing is, people like things to be simple. They like things to be good versus evil or whatever, good versus bad, or black versus white or whatever, up versus down, left versus right, you know, conservative versus liberal, whatever, Democrat versus Republican. And it just makes things simple for their life. Like if they can put everything in one of these boxes, then they already think that they understand it. It's like, okay, this fits in this box. It's liberal. Boom. That's it. I don't have to think about it anymore, and I move on. It's like it's a childlike way of going through the world and feeling like there's no such thing as a gray area in subjects. You know how, you know, it's the nuance part takes time and effort to dig through that people really just don't want to do. And it's like the image of the yin and the yang, where it has the little black dot inside of the white part, and it has the little white dot inside of the black part. That is the nuance. That is what knowledge is, to understand that there's good and evil, understand that there's evil and good, you know, understand that no person falls as exclusively conservative or exclusively liberal. No one does. Everything's okay. So, you know, but that takes time and effort and, you know, knowledge to dig through and understand, but people don't want to take the time to do that. They want it to be simple, then they can feel like they're smart. That, you know, the person that can't say, I don't know, you know, it's like when I was younger, I used to say I know all the time. Like it was a phrase I would say all the time. People start talking and I'm just like, I know. And then when you say I know, then they just stop talking or whatever. They stop explaining it because, you know, either you actually do know and there's no point in them talking, or you're not going to take in an information anyways because you feel like you know already. So a lot of people have difficulty saying that they don't know, you know, that I'm not aware, I don't know, you know, because you have this dynamic where people want to make you feel stupid. They want to make you feel ignorant or whatever. Like in our society, especially in your jobs, like in the work environment, saying that you don't know is like saying you're incompetent, you know. But when you pretend to know and you don't, that's when you actually are incompetent. Because when you say, like on a workplace, if you say I don't know, then it can be explained to you. You can be taught. They can show you what it is or whatever, so that you can be proficient in it and accomplish the task at hand. But if you pretend to know and you don't, then you're not going to be able to accomplish the task at hand. That leads you to actually literally be incompetent. You know, so, but people saying you know, they're so concerned about being incompetent, and it's like getting promoted and becoming in charge or whatever. A lot of it has to do with confidence and exuding this image of knowledge or whatever, proficiency or whatever, whether it's true or not. And that's how you end up with people in charge who don't know nothing. They're good at faking it till they make it, you know. Let's read some more. It says, during the BLM protests, white men would drive up alongside us marching and yell awful things at us. And some people went off for a second, but would calm down quickly. Troublemakers want to draw out what you're fighting for. So, and this is what's happening on these college campuses. Those anti-protesters are showing up and shooting fireworks and trying to antagonize the people. You know, a lot of the protests are overwhelmingly peaceful until the police show up or until the anti-protesters show up. Like they're sitting at home watching this and they're like, oh, I hate that they're protesting. Oh, why are they like this? Oh, let me go over there, you know. And you also have money. People that funds this type of thing, where they don't want the image of the peaceful protest where, you know, there's no legitimate reason to go in there and bust it up. So boom, let's give them a legitimate reason. Let's pay some people to go over there and antagonize the situation to make it no longer peaceful, you know. And this is what's happening. Comment, it says, I'm very conflicted about all of this. Who should I believe? I'm very conflicted about all of this. Who should I believe? That's, that's fair. That's fair. And it's hard to understand what's really happening. But if you educate yourself about the topic, find out what they are really protesting and find out who these people are that are protesting. And, you got Jewish Voice for Peace. These are actually Jewish folks who are calling for their university to divest and, basically profiting from the war over there, so like, once you learn about it, then you can have a perspective on the situation. Maybe you don't agree with them protesting, but it's like the whole point of the protest is to draw attention to a situation, and it's the convenience of everyone else is secondary. They always say, you could protest, but not like that. If it's constricting anyone else or whatever. As far as being violent or mean to Jewish folks or whatever, I wouldn't agree with that either, but causing a little bit of commotion or some kind of inconvenience or whatever, the protest has to do that to accomplish its goal of drawing attention to a subject. Because if it's not any kind of inconvenience for anyone, then people just go about their lives and nothing happens. The powers that be is going to give you information that benefits the powers that be, so you have to push against that to be able to get information out against that, if that makes any sense. Another comment says, the truth been told, the USA has never been about helping, rather about greed, profit, oppression, and killing. Wars are about profit, sales of arms and equipment. It says, do not let these protests cause you to think they are not peaceful protests. Case in point, Brown University students came to an agreement with Brown, encampments were removed, and Brown is taking the steps to divest. At least they're telling the kids that. Who knows if they're actually going to do it. Another comment says, what about the Jewish and American hostages? How about Hamas turn them over and then more thoughtful questions can be answered? That one gesture will establish enough trust to cease fire. Until then, it will only get worse. Well, the whole reason why Hamas took the protesters was to accomplish a goal that they wanted to accomplish. So from their perspective, it wouldn't make any sense. What would they accomplish by just giving and then after all these people have died already, like it wouldn't make any sense. As far as there is talks, Saudi Arabia is getting involved, and they're saying that Saudi Arabia may give Israel something that they've really been wanting, and all of this will be tied to a Palestinian state, which is what Hamas wants. So if Israel can get what they want and Hamas can get what they want, then that would lead to peace. It says, yes to all of this. As surprised as I am to hear from MSNBC, but I just wanted to add that IDF bombed every single last college to rubble in Gaza, and not because they were HMS bases. In fact, one was used as a base by IDF for 4 weeks as they left the bomb. As they left, the bomb did to dust. The students here, remember that. The writing is not very good here. It's making it hard for me to read it. Yeah, man, freaking the tents in Rafah is getting bombed. I saw some images going down my timeline earlier today, and like, that's crazy, man. And they're talking about the universities being destroyed, and not only bombed, but they set explosives in there and took the infrastructure out. Like, I don't know that there's any universities left there. What did he say? Surprised to hear from MSNBC. I was too. Like this, I'm not the biggest fan of MSNBC. We talk about media literacy on this show today, and it's like the perspective coming from MSNBC a lot of times is, how do I say, biased, if you will, slanted, if you will, and big corporations, big business, big money is writing those news stories or whatever. So, but this segment was framed very well. It says, in my eyes, Hamas did this for a few reasons. One, to make a bold statement to its allies that is strong and fully committed to their cause. Second, to further cement its control on Gaza, which is always threatened by an actual peace agreement. Third, they knew that the response by the current Israeli government would be heavy-handed and would then garner sympathy for the Palestinians people in the media once the Israeli military started operations. They knowingly used their own people to further their goal of destroying Israel's image, and their actions are despicable. On the Israeli side, the government is a key ally of the U.S. They know this, which is why they leverage this in key situations like the Ukraine war. They are a nation with the best quick strike capabilities, combat and strike Iran if and when conflict with Iran becomes a reality. This is why the U.S. government continues to send arms to them. However, the conflict in Gaza has shown how Netanyahu's government has no reservations on ending this ongoing situation with Palestinians through a campaign of total destruction, very similar to Russia's tactics against Ukraine. Yet the heavy-handed actions by both Hamas militants and Israel army have only cemented further hatred and created a whole new batch of terrorists in Gaza and Zionists in Israel. The two-state solution is the only pathway. One state, Israel or Palestine, cannot solely exist by itself, or the other side will seek to continue armed conflict to attain what is denied. Yeah, I think that this situation may actually lead to a Palestinian state this time. Oh, I'm getting tired, y'all. Says Apple's record 110 billion stock buyback is bigger than Boeing, Airbnb, and Chipotle. Apple just launched 110 billion stock buyback, the biggest in stock market history. The announcement came alongside a strong fiscal second quarter earnings report for Apple, which saw revenue and earnings per share beat estimates, while Greater China sales also exceeded expectations. Shares of Apple surged 7% on Friday. Apple also raised its dividend 4% to 0.25 per share, reiterating its commitment to sending a big chunk of its profits back to shareholders. Man, but that's still pennies, man. And the shadiness is going on with these stock buybacks is crazy. If people really understood this stuff, but it's like, oh, well, I can invest in Apple and I can make some money. Man, the Apple stock is high, bro. Like, the average person is going to have enough shares that this 25 cents per share is going to make a fucking difference in your fucking life. You know what I mean? If you had enough to Apple shares that this 25 cents per share made a difference to you, you're already rich. Like, this is not benefiting regular folks. So, but that's how people support this. That's how they sell it to you, to make you think that it's good for, regular folks. And it's not. It's a game. I wish people understood that. It's so shady. Comments, it says almost valuation of entire ICI bank. It says, but it's not that much compared to the Apple valuation. It says, and they're laying off people, keep cooperating with billionaires. Yeah, so these are the results. Like, instead of paying their employees, they do stock buybacks and enrich their CEOs and enrich the the people who have large stocks holdings, you know, it's not benefiting the average person. And a company is way too big if it can spend 110 billion to buy its own stocks. Like, goodness gracious. And it artificially inflates the value of the stocks. Comment, it says artificially inflating the value of their company, so top 1% who owns the stock increases their wealth for producing absolutely nothing. Exactly. It's like the few win and the rest of us lose. Another comment says they just bought high, LMAO. They totally did. And they won. Usually if you buy high, you're losing, but not in this case. Another comment says it doesn't stop the slowing sales. Another comment says massive layoffs coming. Yep. Another comment that says Apple becoming a scam company, a cell phone manufacturing company. What a shame. Another comment says Boeing still wins as far as murdered whistleblowers. Another comment says stand by for layoffs 3-2. Another one, Apple, Google, and Amazon need to be broken up because they are monopolies. Yep. Yep. Another comment says mature company playing with buybacks to justify valuation. I know people don't really understand it. This is the stuff that we should be angry about. And this is the stuff that we should be paying attention to, which gets no coverage. Or if it does get coverage, they cover it in a way that makes it look like it's a good thing. Can I share? Am I sharing this? I went to a whole nother page. I'm losing y'all, huh? I don't know how much longer I'm gonna go. It says boycott works. Starbucks is collapsing. Their CEO went on live TV attempting to revive the stock. He says it was very tough quarter due to pressures on customers, China, and challenges of businesses in the Middle East, also impacting us in other geographies. As he was talking throughout the 10-minute interview, the stock went down another 5% in real time. Starbucks stock, S-Bucks, closed the day 16% lower and has erased $35 billion in value since its all-time high. And what's important to understand about this is that people are boycotting Starbucks related to its connection to Israel.
Your CFO said, as I've seen in a long time. Joining us now exclusively is Starbucks CEO Luxman Narasimhan. Mr. Narasimhan, it's good to have you on the show, and I appreciate that you're coming on, despite the fact that the quarter was extremely weak.
Jim, it was a very tough quarter. Thank you for having me. There were three reasons for this. First, we saw unexpected pressures on our occasional customers, more intense than we expected, that impacted their visitation. Second, the choppiness of the recovery in China continued with a more intense price war than what we expected. And third, challenges of our business in the Middle East that impacted us not just in the Middle East, but also in other geographies.
Okay.
Clearly,
I understand. Now, what I'm trying to figure out, sir, is why did you not feel the need to pre-announce this shortfall, given the fact in the previous quarter, your CFO said that she felt that you could have a earnings per share growth in the range of 15 to 20%. This is a substantial decline from that. And given the fact that you said on the call that April did not end well, I'd like to know why you did not feel the need to come out and say our quarter is going to be substantially worse than expected at least 4 weeks ago.
I think, Jim, we've been working on action plans to address these headwinds. And so what we wanted to come back with was not just the announcement, but also the action plans that we have in place, which, by the way, are not business as usual.
As I've seen in a long time. Joining us now exclusively is Starbucks CEO Laxman Narasimhan. Mr. Narasimhan, it's good to have you on the show, and I appreciate the earnings per share growth in the range of 15 to 20%. This is a substantial decline from that. And given the fact that you said on the call,
Look at that cliff in this graphic right here. Talk about falling off of a cliff. And I'm surprised that they didn't mention that Starbucks is being boycotted as a result of, Israel. Comments, it says, I'm thirsty for CEO tears. Another one says, Starbucks went bust in Australia years ago and closed down 90% of their stores because Australians refuse to pay money for dishwater. We'd rather buy real coffee and support our local cafe and barista than pay a multinational for giant sugar-loaded coffee-flavored milkshakes. Another comment, it says, and you all think you're changing the system because you've boycotted coffee for basic bitches, effing clowns. You think the IDF cares about your shitty coffee? Y'all are a bunch of NPCs. Whatever. You see that cliff? That cliff is real. It says, Starbucks is going down. People will never forget. Even if Starbucks changed their name to Star Dollars, Star Ducks, Sunbucks, we won't forget. Free Palestine. Other one says, when can we apply this magic to Exxon or Raytheon? Yeah, man, but Exxon is too big. Raytheon is too big. It's like Starbucks relies on people coming in their stores and buying their coffee. Exxon and Raytheon, especially Raytheon, they don't rely on people doing anything. And Exxon too, to a certain extent. And people have to, drive their cars. They have to do and there's more products. All the plastic. Alhamdulillah, from the river to sea. Another comment says, let's make an example of Starbucks. Let's boycott so hard that the company becomes history and cautionary tale to other businesses not to support genocide. Another one, it's more about corporate greed and disguise of inflation. A lot to learn, but you will get there. Look at Nike. They just decided to cut back production to secure profits. Down with the Zionist sugar syrup. Another one, Starbucks plays footsie with genocidal Israel boycott. Always got to try to throw China in somehow. No, hon, it's late stage capitalism and Rome is falling. Another one says, we may see the end of Starbucks in our lifetime. Another one, serves them right to support genocide. Another one, the value of boycott is less in its impact on the target company and whether or not it changes its position, and more in terms of how the similar companies price risks to their businesses. Everyone else has to imagine taking a 35 billion hit. That's the current rate for appearing to support genocide. Interesting. So the impact has more impact because everybody's going to be looking at these numbers and seeing this cliff here, and so other companies are going to be, I don't want that cliff to be in my freaking portfolio or whatever. It's kind of like how AIPAC controls politics, not only by the money that they give to politicians, but also the ones they don't give money to. Like, they're worried, the other people are worried about the influence of that money, so it has even greater impact. Like, we don't want them to come for us and fund our opposition, so we're going to make sure that we are friendly to these people, so they don't even have to do anything and they still influencing. It says of F-16 fighter Falcon jets from its 510th Expeditionary Fighter Squadron to the Middle East. These F-16s are set to undertake a range of missions for U.S. and Britain, including safeguarding vessels in the Red Sea and Arabian Gulf as part of the Operation Prosperity Guardian. Operation Prosperity Guardian will include U.S. and U.K. aerial campaigns, while Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Bahrain will carry out a ground incursion of Yemen for its Red Sea maritime blockade of Israeli ships. A recent military exercise dubbed Desert Flag 9 saw the participation of Saudi Arabia, Israel, and other Arab nations at the Al Dhafra base in the Emirates to prepare for this assault. This maneuver is believed to be part of preparations for the announcement of new military coalition, ostensibly aimed at safeguarding all ships navigating in the Red Sea, Gulf of Aden, and Indian Ocean. The coalition aimed to dismantle the blockade on Israel imposed by Yemeni forces and quell Ansarallah's assault on Israeli vessels, actions intended to halt the ongoing genocide in Gaza. Why does Saudi Arabia deliberately target civilians on the Yemeni border with French Caesar's cannons? Wouldn't it be wiser for the Saudi army to position these cannons near the borders of the Northern Kingdom to aid the people of Gaza? Muhammad Ali al-Houthi, member of the Supreme Political Council. So it says exclusive investigation. Yemen is gearing up for a significant air and ground campaign led by the United States, Britain, and the Arab Gulf states. Mempress sources have confirmed that in the case of the U.S.-led ground invasion of Yemen, planned assaults by the Ansar Allah will target not only U.S. interests and bases within the involved nations, but also critical facilities and assets belonging to those participating countries, such as oil installations. Ansar Allah has issued a grave threat of launching a large-scale and aggressive assault aimed at crucial installations, including oil facilities in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. This ominous warning mirrors previous attacks, such as the devastating strikes on the Abaqaiq oil facilities in September 2019, which resulted in significant disruption of half of Saudi Arabia's oil production. So yeah, man, new ways of fighting war, right? Fifth generational warfare. It's like, you know, attacking the opposing side's military isn't nearly as effective as attacking their infrastructure where they make money off of and stuff like that. You know, disrupting their economic situations. And that's what Yemen has been doing. They've been pretty damn successful in it, to the point where you got these coalition of folks coming at their ass. And the Houthi rebels are a small group. Like, they don't have a lot of money either. So, like, they've been having dramatic impact on these huge major countries. Comments, it says, so Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Bahrain would happily join forces to attack Yemen, but won't lift a finger to help the Palestinians. Disgraceful. Another one, the Western world Gulf countries would rather wage war with Yemen for their blockades instead of ending the genocide in Gaza. Long live the resistance and salute to the free people of Yemen. Yeah, it seems like it would make sense that they would work for diplomacy to bring the Israel-Hamas war to an end. It seems like that would be a lot less risky and expensive and, you know, possibly loss of life than to go at it this way, you know? USA, UK, and France have to leave the Middle East totally and permanently. Another one, it says, I can't believe that people who are calling themselves Muslims are teaming up with the enemies of Islam, of peace and humanity. I don't believe them. You know, I've been saying for the longest, like these Saudi Arabia folks, they have on costume. They're a lot like the Israeli folks. You know, they have more in common than them than they're different. You know, they're playing dress up and pretend is what they're doing. Another comment says, Yemen is the bravest, my deepest respect, resistance and destruction of Zionist project, the only way to peace. Another one, whoever sets foot on Yemeni soil will regret the very second they choose to do so. Yeah, they have a history. Like their country has been under attack forever, you know, and these people know war, like, and then they know their terrain. It's kind of like, you know, Afghanistan has never really been conquered, you know, and Yemen is another one. Like these people, they're not gonna, I mean, like for them, they're like, bring it on, bro. Like, it's not gonna be any difference for us. Like, you know, y'all the ones, if y'all want this, you know, you're gonna have to deal with what comes along with it. Like, this is what we do. This is what we've been through. Like, you can't do any hardship, make shit harder on us. We were born in this hardship. Y'all been living in your freaking air-conditioned homes. Come on over here and get some of this. Another comment says, growing up, my father, Allah Ramul, always said Saudi are Zionists. Now nothing is hidden anymore. Free Palestine and the world from Zionism. Interesting. Another one that says, SA has always been the most hated Muslim country among Muslims because they sold out to oil companies controlled by Western countries. Since a child I have known this, the hypocrisy is that they happen to be home to Mecca. Another comment says they need to leave Yemen alone. Shame on those Gulf countries. Yeah, Saudi Arabia, and they do horrible stuff. Like, those people don't really believe in what they say that they do. You know? Another comment says, we are ready and ready to look out for them, and this is not the first time they have launched a ground attack. We have been in a ground war for 9 years with American and British support. See? I don't see them being very successful. Just like the ground offensive in Rafah is not going to come to, it's not going to be successful either. The people that they know, they know. It's really about us, the regular folks who perceive the stuff. And then the media covers it in a way where it's like, oh yeah, you know, the United States was successful or whatever. Israel was successful or whatever. But the situation on the ground is not, you know, that. Like, again, Afghanistan is another example. Iraq is another example. Like, yeah, I mean, they killed some people. They killed, you know, they took out the leaders or whatever, you know, but were they successful in their mission is the question, you know. Were they successful in Afghanistan? Question mark. Were they successful in Iraq? Damn. I wasn't sharing this whole time. That's okay. That's what sucks when I'm here by myself. I can't see the screen. So anyways, let me go back. Was there any images on here that was helpful? I was reading this Mint Press a minute ago. I was reading this right here, Mint Press. So it wasn't on the screen, but this is what I was reading here. Apologies. How long was the screen not showing? Did I show this freaking graphic, the Starbucks graphic? Whatever, I'm gonna move on.
Places are not going to save us. Just look at the Black proponents of Cop City in Atlanta's leadership class. Black faces in high places are not going to save us. Just look at the Black woman's hand ambassador at the UN voting against a ceasefire in Gaza. That is, our blackness and our womanness are not in themselves trustworthy. If we allow ourselves to be conscripted into positions of power that maintain the oppressive status quo, our blackness and womanness are not themselves trustworthy if we support the occupation of Black neighborhoods with so-called better trained police, or remain silent about the genocide of oppressed peoples around the world funded by our tax dollars. And here, let me please shout out the incredible Spelman students and AUC siblings who have been organizing with Stop Cop City and Justice in Palestine, among many other troublemakers in this room. You all remind us that college is not a waiting room to enter the real world, but that you can start transforming that world right here, right now. It goes without saying, but let me just say it anyway. For student activists speaking out courageously for Palestine and Congo and Haiti and to stop Cop City, they should not be threatened with expulsion, loss of scholarships, or have public safety called on them for protesting. Too often, our institutions celebrate student activists after they've graduated, even giving them honorary degrees. Black faces in high places are not going to save us. Just look at the Black proponents of Cop City in Atlanta's leadership class.
Yeah, man, this thing with the image politics is really bothers me. Like, it's a woman, so I'm going to vote for her. It's a Black person, so I'm going to vote for her, or whatever. Like, you know, it's like, what about their policies? What do they stand for? What are they trying to accomplish? You know, look what happened with Obama. Like, it's really sad that we've gotten to this point. You know, it's a very good chance that Trump is going to have a female as his VP. And politically, it would make sense. But, you know, just having a female just for the sake that she's a female is a terrible place that we've gotten in politics. You know, it's the image politics. So people just vote for people based on what they look like or whatever, what their gender is. You know, it's going to lead to us having leaders that don't align with our views or our politics. Let me read some. It says, we are global indigenous people, love and unity to the best key for all of us together. Also giving thanks to the great mother goddess and great father gods and the ancestors and guardians. Saying from Sniffer, aka Bishri. Another comment says, to blame the Black female hand for the vote she took is unbecoming. Do you really think that's how her heart wanted to vote? She has a job to vote the way Americans want to vote with, and do go around blaming her for the white votes you guys put in the Congress or the federal government. Come on now, Meiji. It's Meiji's sense if you're going. Yes, you can blame the person for the vote that they did, you know. How else are you going to look at it? They can vote how they want to vote. And as far as people voting based on their constituents, that is not what I tend to see in politics, like at all. The constituents disagree with them wholeheartedly, and then they go with some old bullshit that's not good for their freaking constituents. It happens over and over and over and over again. So no, I don't see these people, you know, feeling pressure from their constituents. Maybe they're worried about the next election, but people have a short memory. So when election time comes around and they say some old bullshit, and then the people vote for them again. Like, anyways, I'm gonna save some stuff for tomorrow, and I gotta work in the morning, so I'm gonna get out of here, y'all. Peace and love. Thank y'all for listening.